When it comes to survival egress, having different vehicle options in your fleet is a great idea and a bit of wisdom. A dirt bike can be a great addition for reconnaissance purposes and other reasons. It is possible to hide an entire motorbike in the woods. It's not ideal to turn it on its side. The fuel runs out and you end up flooding the engine. Because along with the motorbike, you also need to have the skills to ride it, and being able to get over obstacles is really imperative. In this video, I'm going to share with you how I've turned my dirt bike into the perfect preparedness machine, the gear that I have on it for preparedness purposes, as well as how you can use your motorbike to survive even in a non-permissive environment. I'm Clarice, welcome to the liveready channel. You're probably able to tell that there are advantages and disadvantages to having a dirt bike. So I actually have this chest rig on here. This is what I've set up for preparedness purposes. It actually is the one that I use to track with Hunter. I'm going to take it off shortly, but I'm also going to do a little gear dump with you and show you what I carry on my person and what I carry on my bike, because it is important to differentiate between what you're willing to be separated from, potentially by being catapulted through the air, because it does happen, and what you should absolutely keep on your person. I recently saw some footage out of Kinshasa, and I don't know if you're aware of what's happening there, but it is absolute chaos at the moment, or at least at the time of filming this video. And people are literally evacuating the city on foot because it is gridlocked. Now you've got a whole bunch of vehicles that are blocking the road. So for the person who's on a motorbike, they move a lot faster through that sort of situation. As a preparedness citizen, you should actually already by that point have left the city. So really important to also just know when to make a call, which vehicle are you going to use. For myself, I like having the bike for reconnaissance purposes. I don't see myself evacuating the city or the village that I live in on a dirt bike unless I absolutely have to. My first choice is always going to be put it on the back of the vehicle, take it along, set up a base camp somewhere, and then take the dirt bike and go do reconnaissance, find water, find resources in the area, or move in and out of the villages if I absolutely need to. Luckily for me, I live in quite a rural part. It's easier to get away with like hopping over roads with a bike that's not actually street legal, which is something else that I'll get into shortly, because I was going to make it street legal and now not sure I will. You can cover terrain with a dirt bike quite quickly that you would otherwise do very slowly with a vehicle or not at all. So for example, moving through the forest here, there are some old Jeep tracks around, but my vehicle is limited to the Jeep tracks where the bike isn't. And if I absolutely have to go on foot, then I've covered a lot of distance on the bike that would otherwise have used up a lot of energy. Now, in any situation where you are short of resources, you want to conserve energy and you want to conserve fuel as well. Now, a dirt bike is going to run off a lot less fuel than what my Prado is going to. The other thing that you need to consider is the sustainability of the bike that you buy. So for the situation where you really need to evacuate a city, let's take for example the unrest that we had in Durban a couple years back, or in KZN. So what happened was, because the shops were being raided, a lot of the shops closed down, and even though there was actually fuel available to be sold, they weren't selling fuel because they were just so scared of actually being raided or stores being robbed that the stores closed down. So even if fuel is available, you might just not have access to it in something like a bug out situation. Or in a situation of unrest. A bike, for example, lots of people say to me, oh, but you should have bought a two-stroke. And for me, for preparedness purposes, that doesn't make any sense at all. Because now I need to not just get fuel for the bike, I also need to mix it with oil. So now I've got two resources that I need to be able to find to run this vehicle. As far as a car goes, you'd actually be better off getting something that's diesel. In South Africa, at least, a lot of the farmers keep extra diesel on their farms. So I'm not saying go and steal the farmer's diesel. I'm saying you could potentially barter or trade something for the diesel, but you would be able to find diesel in someone's backyard a whole lot easier than you would petrol. So those are the kinds of considerations that you need to have when you are buying any sort of vehicle for your fleet, whether that be an electric vehicle or a dirt bike or a e-bike or whatever. So for me, 4-stroke petrol engine, and I'm quite happy. You also cover a lot of terrain very quickly, where if you had to evacuate on foot with your bug-out bag, you would end up having to carry a large weight that you could otherwise disperse on your bike. Now, we get into sort of the yes, but there are limitations to a dirt bike. In preparedness, you want to actually retain as much of the resources that you can, and that's why I say exiting on vehicle is option number 1. Take the dirt bike along, and then you've got like a reconnaissance vehicle that you can use, and maybe even add a drone onto that, and then you've got extra reconnaissance power. But if a drone battery fails and you need to still be able to go and collect resources, then it's easier to do it on a dirt bike. If you are being pursued, you can put a lot of distance between yourself and the pursuing party by just getting on a bike and moving off. If they're in a vehicle, you can cut through the woods where they potentially cannot cut through. If they're on foot, then you're going to outrun them very quickly on a bike. Add some skills into this equation also. Special thanks to my friend Donovan, and also coach of the ladies training group. Yes, I said it, I joined the ladies training group to teach me some skills, because along with the motorbike, you also need to have the skills to ride it.
I was going to try this route instead of that one, because that one looked like it had holes, and I mean, this was just beautiful forest.
Yeah, and lush.
I have no idea how I'm going to get out of here. Oh my gosh.
Clarice rocking at her best.
Some of the disadvantages of a bike is, one, they make a hell of a noise, especially starting it.
Oh my gosh, why did I stop here?
So there is like a noise discipline thing that you really have to take into consideration when you have a dirt bike. I can hear the dirt bikes on some days way up on the other side of the mountain, but to actually find those guys is a different story. The other thing that is a disadvantage is the amount of packing space. So you don't have the packing space and the load space that you've got in a vehicle. Now there's quite a lot of gear that you can add to your preparedness setup for your bike. The maintenance schedule for a dirt bike is a whole lot more than for a car. So you can drive a car a whole lot further before you actually need to service it. Bikes need servicing quite often. And you also end up having to learn all of the skills to service it yourself, which actually I'm still learning. I've only had this bike, I think, 6 months now at the time of filming this video, not even. And I've very quickly learned how to change levers, how to fill up the coolant, how to like do an oil change. Like those things are skills that you end up having to learn, and you end up needing to carry quite a lot of spare parts. Now if you ride quite carefully, potentially you won't need spare parts so quickly. But like I said, there is a service schedule. You do need to have a maintenance schedule set up. And for that purpose, you can't have like a whole crate of spares on the back of your bike, because you're not going to have enough space to put all of the gear that you actually need to survive from day to day. Also, a common misconception about bikes is you would think that it's something that you could just quickly hop on the bike and off you go, you know. But it's not. It's all the gear all the time. Gearing up every time to just hop on the bike, it actually takes quite a bit of effort, and eventually you start thinking, well, that wasn't so fast after all, was it? Now I've got a whole lot more gear than what I usually have on, but this is, like I said, my preparedness rig. This is a 2008 WR 250F. Advantage, it's not a finicky bike, but because it's an older bike, you eventually will start to struggle to find parts, or at least the exact ones for the bike. Now, there have been a couple times that I've bought levers, like a clutch lever or whatever, and it's been spec for my bike, it's been the exact right one according to the manufacturer, but then it just doesn't fit, and then you end up with a file, like filing away the little parts that don't fit. So good to have a reliable, I mean, Yamaha is quite reliable, and you'll find parts really easily, so it's relatively easy to service in comparison to, I don't know, something like a Husky, the Husqvarnas, you know, to get parts, at least in South Africa. I know someone who said to me recently they've had to like import parts, and it took like 6 months to get here because there was some hold up, and Yamahas, Hondas, Suzukis, at least in South Africa, you'll find parts relatively easily. That makes servicing it easy. The suspension is a bit softer, it's tuned down. So for my purposes, for preparedness purposes, it's actually perfectly fine. 250, powerful enough. Can't say that I've complained about it. Out of interest, the max speed that I've done on it on a road, yes, I've ridden it on the road, I think it was 80 kilometers an hour. That was in 5th gear, and I didn't feel like I was really pushing the engine to be absolutely at its top, but I probably wouldn't try and push it more than that. On a dirt road, the fastest I've done is 60 kilometers an hour, and I mean, like I said, you can outrun someone on a double track quite quickly like that. And then you get the trails in the bush, and if you start getting good at trail riding, you start getting good at enduro riding, then going through the bush is really fast. And I think the fastest I've cornered before on a nice loopy track was 30 kilometers an hour, and Hunter keeps up at 33 kilometers an hour. So obviously I can't run the dog to the point of collapse, but at least he will be able to keep up for that amount of time. So good to also consider the fact that if you have a family or you have pets and you need to evacuate, they're not all going to fit on the one bike. But what you can do is, if your partner drives a vehicle and you get on the bike, then the animals and the kids and everyone goes in the vehicle. The bike comes along as a reconnaissance tool, or as an in and out of the village, or an in and out of the towns, or whatever kind of tool that you need it to be. So it ends up being quite a nice balance. All right, so for my first bike, I'm quite happy with this one. It did start out blue. For preparedness purposes, blue, big no-no, but it also just annoyed me so much that I had a blue motorbike. So there's not a lot of the blue bike anywhere. I think I do have a clip of it, so I will show it to you. But it also, like I said earlier, to get parts for the older bikes can be quite tricky. So I had to import new plastics for it at a price that you really do not want to know. They actually, from the UK, said to me, "You are nuts for paying these import taxes." And then I also had a new sticker kit put onto it. And my brief to the guys who put the sticker kit on was, if it looks a bit like a rock by the time you're done, you've done a great job. So I really wanted it to sort of blend in with the environment a little bit more, but also have like a grey man thing to it, so that if someone does see me, it doesn't look like an all-out camo bike. It's not something that looks threatening, which is also in part why the pants are pink, because even though I am carrying, my pink pants make me look a whole lot less threatening. If you are carrying, it's better to like not show it. So this is what you do. You just take your shirt and you just cover it up. Someone having a little bit of fun in the woods, not overly threatening. So I don't appear to be the biggest target. I have actually ridden around with a radio before. Reason being that I sometimes ride around on a farm where there isn't cell reception. So I'd usually have my phone either in this little bag on the top of my bike, or I sometimes just stick it down the side of my pants. I wear there's a really nice fox bikini. It's got it's almost like a sports bra kind of. So I like to wear that because if it gets wet, it's fine. It dries quickly, but it also holds a lot of my gear in place. Even my gun is actually tucked into my costume. I know that sounds weird, but it holds everything, so it's cool. All right, so I do actually very often, if I get on a bike, have a radio. It's nice to have a chest rig because it puts things right here where you can reach them. So if I get launched off of my bike and I'm disoriented, I'm still really easily going to find the smoke grenade that I've put over here. And I've actually gone and removed the plasticky cover of it, because you need to do that generally before you can pull this, or it might be a little bit easier to actually just pull the smoke grenade. Just read the instructions beforehand for smoke grenades. Don't pull up, pull sideways, because otherwise you're going to probably burn your hand, and that's just the way it's designed to start smoking. Smoke grenades are great for starting fire as well in a permissive environment. So if you don't need to signal for help at any one point, but you do need to start a fire and you've got no other way to do it, smoke grenade gets hot enough to start a fire. Also good to know, so you don't end up starting forest fires by mistake. I don't even cover this with the zip. I leave it open so that I can reach it easily. And then whatever else I really need to access quickly, I can put in this little pocket over here. I don't think there's anything in there at the moment. I think it's just like hunter treats. Okay, and then I've also put my water bladder on my back. So many people have said to me, the best water bladder is this one, and the best like camelback, this bag, and I'm just like, Molly, guys, have you seen the Molly? I'm not gonna go for like a camelback bag. I want everything to be to like fit together and to be easily accessible and to be modular more than anything. So that's why I really like Molly. The chest rig is nice because it stays out of your way. The minute you put something here, it's in the way when you get on the bike, because you're forward flexed on the bike. So even appendix carrying is not going to work on a bike, which is why my gun is at the back, which we'll get to in a moment. Further to the chest rig at the back, again, just got a Molly pouch. I don't think there's anything in there now, but it's good to leave some space for the stuff that you forage as well. Don't overstuff everything. And on that note, like, try and keep the gear to a minimum. Like, hone your skills rather and have less gear. That's a good idea. All right, water bladder. Then you can actually put a Swear Mini on your water bladder. I've done that before as well. It means that you don't have to boil the water in your water bladder, or that goes into your water bladder, before you put it in there. You just plumb the Swear Mini on here. It should actually be in here. Now the smoke grenade. Good to have two. One is none, two is one. All right, so let me show you how you do this without having water everywhere. It can be a little bit of a mission to get it off. Literally just put the Swear Mini right on there, and I can drink straight from the Swear Mini. So if I end up finding a river or water source along the way, I can fill up my water bladder and I'm hunky-dory to go. It saves a lot of time as well. If you're running, if you really are in a hurry to get to someone or away from someone, like having quick ways to fill up, find food, quickly make a meal, or quickly build a shelter, or quickly camouflage your bike, because that's another consideration, is really good. Some things that you never want off your person is a knife. I always carry a knife on me. Just have a little EDC one. For bike purposes, it's good to have one with a really strong clip, because if you do fall, I have actually lost an EDC knife. I think I just fell and it must have come out of my pants and it was lost. I mean, you don't even feel it coming out. So having an EDC knife is really important. There is no cameraman for me to flag all of this is a safe environment, so don't stress about a cameraman. I know I have friends who always ride with a gun, not necessarily in the wilderness, but just like in their daily ride as well. And everybody sort of agrees this is the best place to put a gun. It's easily accessible. If I'm in this position on the bike, my gun's going to be in the way if I'm appendix carrying, and it just slots into its holster. So it's easy for me to reach. You don't also have to be in bike gear. You can actually just be in civilian clothes. What I do keep in here is the absolute essentials for survival purposes. So I've got should be a lighter, but there's also a ferro rod, which is easier to reach. A hunter will find all the fire making materials that I could ever desire, because he will bring me every stick. Got a tiny fixed blade knife, which is nice for survival purposes. These dogs of war knives are quite nice, so that's kind of nice to keep just as an EDC on the bike, because sometimes EDC knives fail, they break or the blade goes or whatever. Okay, and a lighter. First and foremost, go for the lighter. If you've got enough time, then use a ferro rod, but for the most part, the lighter will do. And just a candling device. So this goes with thermoregulation. which I will get to in a moment for shelter systems. Now, I don't want to put a massive amount of gear on my bike. I want to keep it lightweight and maneuverable. So I've said here, I've got the smoke grenade in here. This was the part of my camelback that I pulled off. I've also got a headlamp. So if it gets dark or my main light for my bike fails for whatever reason, call them emergency rations. You need something to eat along the way, and then just some water purification drops. That sort of covers me for fire making. I can build a shelter, I can build a debris shelter without an actual shelter system, but I will show you what I've got on here in a moment. So the more skills you have, the less gear you actually need to carry on you. But gear also simplifies things for you, makes it a bit easier, and things go faster when you've already got gear. And lipstick, very important. Do get to still be feminine and ride my bike. Then coming around to this pouch over here, it is a little tool pouch. You end up doing quite a bit of maintenance and repairs on a bike. I have actually started keeping extra levers as an extra clutch and an extra brake lever. It is good to know that you can use a spanner as a lever. You literally just put the nut through the spanner hole instead of through the lever hole. It has been done. And then just some of the normal socket tools and Allen key, and there's a Leatherman in here. That's very useful on a bike. So I would definitely say put a multi-tool in there. All of these are really important to have extras of, as far as all the other extras go, because you could have like endless amounts of oil, and you can have endless amounts of lubricant and chain lube and like an air filter cleaner and a whole bunch of stuff. Bury a cache for yourself somewhere. Bury a cache at your bug out location. Have some rendezvous points that you know you're probably going to be able to hit along your way if you are needing to evacuate for whatever reason. And in that cache, store some bike gear or tools or spare parts, or like a whole bike. You can put a whole bike in the bush. It is possible to hide an entire motorbike in the woods. It's not ideal to turn it on its side to try and camouflage it, because the fuel runs out and you end up flooding the engine. So not ideal. You can do it, but it's not ideal. Then you can actually just rather use something like a camo net and make an A-frame shelter for your bike to go in. It also is better that way, because then when you reach the bike, you can immediately hop on it, just get it into gear and off you go, rather than picking it up, trying to dig it out from underneath all of the debris, and then also having to try and like get the engine running again because you've now flooded it by putting it on its side. So better idea than putting it on its side and covering it with debris is to actually just make an A-frame shelter. There's a video that I made about camouflaging your heat signature. I will link that over here. Go and check that out. This is the tarp that I used on that video. It's a great shelter system because it's got the silver lining on the inside, but it is also brown on the outside, so it helps to camouflage things. Like you can attach it to the bike and use that to build a shelter. You can use this to also camouflage the heat signature of the bike. So if you had a look at that video about camouflaging a heat signature, you'll see in the background my car's whole engine bay is still hot in the video because it was driving up until that point. The moment you put like a mylar blanket or anything thermal in front of that, you completely camouflage that heat signature. As long as it doesn't touch that actual object or the car or the bike, you can camouflage its heat signature. I can actually just bivvy in this, like literally just roll myself up in it. So I built a little shelter down here. Let's see if I get into my little shelter. Okay, so this is what I mean. I'm sitting here right by the engine bay now, and this is going to provide plenty of warmth for me if I need to stay overnight here, or if I need to build a shelter overnight. I can go and pitch this up a little bit higher, and then I've got more undercover space, but that's going to depend on the size of your tarp or of your covering or of your camo. There's no space for you. No, you have to sleep outside now. Of your covering, I can also just use the landscape to camouflage the other side of the bike, and then use my whole top over the side and do sort of like a lean-to shelter against the bike. Really easy to do, really easy to do. And then I've got the engine bay to help me stay warm, and I can put my little jet boil down here, and I've got space to cook some noodles because I really like noodles. You can, if you're in a cold climate, add something like a lightweight sleeping bag or something like that for yourself, but you end up with a whole lot of gear stacked on the back of a bike. So the reason I've got the medical kit sign sitting on the side of the jet boil here is because, again, Molly, I've attached a little medical kit here at the back, and I've got like a tourniquet and some of the basic medical supplies on here. Should ideally not need a tourniquet or medical supplies, but it is a good idea to keep some pain meds and some things for like inflammation and just basic medical stuff on your bike, especially if you're going to be riding around the bush by yourself. At the beginning of this video, I said that you can use your bike to survive even in a non-permissive environment. Now, having spoken about the heat signature from the bike, you can actually retain that heat. So if you've been riding the bike around and it's going to be a cold night, take your shelter system, build it over your motorbike. That engine is going to remain warm for quite a long time, like my car's one did, and it's going to be an external heat source for your person. So if you can't make a fire and you're using the jet boil, like let's say you've had to stop somewhere, you've noticed that you're in an environment where there's company and you can no longer ride your bike because of noise discipline, then it is a really good idea to cover your bike and use the heat from that engine bay to your advantage, so that you actually retain that heat and it helps you to regulate your body heat, especially if you can't make a fire. And then having something like the jet boil underneath your shelter. So let's say I build an A-frame shelter over the bike. I'm using the engine bay as extra heat. Just make sure that it's not going to fall on you in the middle of the night. That's something else. Dirt bikes are actually quite heavy. This is 115 kilograms weight. Which means that I have ended up squatting it quite a bit and gaining quite a bit of muscle mass in the process too. But that's just part of learning to ride. You can also use the battery to make a fire. Once again, just attach a bit of steel wool to the two terminals of the battery. It heats up the steel wool because of the resistance in that steel wool, because it's such a fine thread, and then you can use that to actually ignite some tinder. So there's quite a bit that you can do from a motorbike. There isn't really water that you can harvest off of it or anything like that, but you can get quite creative in the process. I was considering making it street legal. I don't know if I still will. For the worst case scenario, it's probably a good idea, just so that you are able to legally hop across roads. Exodus 12 verse 11 says it was where the Israelites were actually going to leave Egypt, and God said to them, keep your sandals on, keep your belt around your waist, eat your food in haste. So you have to be ready for absolutely anything, and that was really just to prepare them for actually evacuating on foot and doing it quickly. And in a situation where we have to evacuate quickly, you might rather have prepared yourself to actually evacuate on a road for a start than not. So it might still be a wise choice. Maybe I will still do it. But anyways, for the most part, I don't foresee myself exiting in a survival egress situation on a motorbike. It will most likely be my vehicle. That also means that you have to have the situational awareness to know when to exit, because if you leave it too late, then you're just going to end up in the gridlock. You're probably not going to get out at all. If you are being pursued in the wilderness, it's a good idea to be able to counter track as well. And it's good to start taking note of dirt bike tracks in the wilderness, and you start to notice them also. But it's easier to counter track a dirt bike than it is a vehicle. It's also easier to camouflage and conceal a dirt bike than it is a vehicle. If you've liked this video, remember to hit like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. There's a lot of the everyday live ready stuff that goes on there. And of Hunter, yes. Until the next time, live ready. You just want a stick, that's what. Here's a stick. Sit. It's finished now. Sit. Good. It's finished now. Okay, we finished playing good boy.